Still in Noah's days. Daniel Vallis here from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian perspective. A watchman watches events and movements and passes on the intel. That's the purpose of our ministry situation room, to have an understanding of the times so we can better know what we should be doing now. Of course, standard disclaimer, this is a watch, not a prediction. I am only sharing with you a situation report of what is going on right now. In our past few videos, we've been looking at enemy action pointing toward this time frame and how it is the days of Noah. Now, just a few days ago was the last biblical anniversary date associated with Noah, or so I thought. See, that's what Christ wants in this period. He wants to find people who are watching, and too many people give up too easily. But do you love the appearing of our Lord? And one way to see and show that is, are you looking for the signs that he left? And today the Lord showed me that there is one more day recorded in the Bible with Noah, and it's a very significant date. Genesis chapter 8:14. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wives and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wives, and his sons' wives with him. On our calendar, the 27th of Shezron falls on the 9th and 10th, just a few days away from the other historic days associated as the days of Noah. Think about this. The flood lasted over a year, but God worked it out so that the end date coincided very closely to the start date of when Noah entered the ark, when the flood started, and when Noah left the ark. That time frame of those significant events is very close to each other. Those are what we can call the days of Noah. But there's even more. On this same day that Noah left the ark is when God made a covenant with mankind, the rainbow covenant. The rainbow is both a promise and a reminder of judgment. Yes, God judged the world in the past, and he will do it again. The promise is that he will not do it by worldwide flood again. And I highly suggest you read Genesis 9 through 17, where he talks about the covenant, the bow that he sets in the sky. So here we find ourselves still in the days of Noah, quickly coming upon the final recorded biblical date associated with Noah, a day that has a reminder of future judgment. And I read the rest of the Noah account today just to make sure that there were no other dates. And this is the last date associated and recorded with Noah that I could find. But we also see that this time frame finds significant enemy action going on at the same time and pointing to this exact same season. In the occult, the 13 days prior and after Halloween are also very significant to them. The enemy appears that they are expecting significant events to transpire in this same time window as well. When we as Christians look at this time period, we see significant signs that this particular 2015 days of Noah will be different than others. Besides being at the top end of the generation lifespan, we've seen numerous celestial signs and recently showing that this year is unique. Now, this is one area where I differ from other watchmen. I don't dive deep into the numbers that others do. I understand what they're doing, but I don't focus on it like they do. Many of them watch for certain events, they count the days, etc., and they try to figure out patterns and meaning, and they really try to go in a direction that's not good. Guess what? The Bible never says that there will be an indication of understanding the times and patterns. Yes, there is some value in it for detecting enemy action patterns, but the Bible tells us that the celestial signs will be the markers that he is approaching. That's what we should be watching. When we see those signs beginning, in conjunction with other events and other prophetic events that he told us would be happening, then we know he is nigh. Not by punching numbers. You see, the celestial events cannot be manipulated by mankind. Therefore, they have the greatest evidential weight. Earth-side events such as major earthquakes, hurricanes, etc., those can be manipulated by mankind. And they can even be used by the enemy for their own self-fulfilling prophecies. The Bible tells us only that those things, earthquakes and violence, wars and all that, major events, those will increase as part of the birth pangs, but that's all we should know. That's just that we will increase. The things that he said are going to be signs that we should be looking for are the celestial signs. Trying to calculate dates from events that are quite likely manipulated by mankind I see it as largely an exercise in futility, and it really does not carry sound weight evidentially. Yeah, you can't really make a strong case on it. Yes, you may be able to throw together some numbers that look impressive, but it does not have weight to it. That is why I make a differentiation in my resources between watching enemy action and celestial events. They are two different sets of patterns. Since the celestial events have the greatest weight, then, we should pay the most attention to them when they do occur and not dismiss them. Take just the blood moon, for example. I've said it for at least 2 years that the blood moons are indicative, not prescriptive. Many people were looking for things to happen on those days that the blood moons happened. I was not. I was looking at the season. I was morbidly curious if something would happen on that day, but I've told people they're just indicative of the season. And also, I knew that the Bible gives a dual prophecy in Joel 2:31 and Acts 2:20 that the sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the tribulation starts. The tribulation is also known as the day of the Lord. That's the pattern set forth in the Old Testament. Whenever God judged a nation, that period of judgment was called the day of the Lord. It's payday. So this year, we saw a significant total solar eclipse right in the middle of the blood moon group called a tetrad. You couldn't say the sign of the moon turning to blood was complete until the entire sign and grouping that made it unique was complete. You had to wait for all four to finish. So hence, we had to wait until the fourth blood moon was complete. Since this blood moon tetrad is the very last tetrad grouping that will appear for hundreds of years, this last blood moon on September 27th and 28th should wake us up now and arrest our attention that the day of judgment, the tribulation, the day of the Lord that it talks about, it's about to start. When we see the last sign happening, and it's not going to happen for hundreds of years, and God says this is going to happen before the day of the Lord, when we see that finish, and okay, it's done now, that should really wake us up. And what started 24 hours after the fourth blood moon? The Feast of Tabernacles. According to the lunar calendar, the Feast of Tabernacles is the fall feast often associated with the tribulation period of 7. It's a picture of it, as well as the concurrent bridal chamber period of 7. So we've just had our attention alerted to that these events are nigh, even at the door. Now is when we should be busiest for God, when we see the day approaching. Too many Laodicean Christians are blind, and they will tell you to calm down, you're overreacting, etc. Well, guess who's going to be left behind with the hypocrites? Those who did not heed Christ's command do, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. Another interesting historical note is that November 9th is also the 77th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the series of coordinated deadly attacks against Jews throughout Nazi Germany and Austria when German Nazis attacked Jewish persons and property. The name Kristallnacht refers ironically to the litter of broken glass left in the streets after these pogroms. The violence continued during the day of November 10th, and in some places acts of violence continued for several more days. The 77th anniversary of when what is historically earmarked as when the events against the Jewish people really started in Germany there. The 77th anniversary is on the same day, the same last day of the days of Noah. We are in the last generation. The generation that saw the rebirth of Israel and the events surrounding it are about to witness even more. The Antichrist is about to make a covenant with many, apparently centered around Israel, but there will be sudden destruction and judgment that comes too. When we look back at the Economist cover, we've already noted that they hint things will be happening around the occult holy days, possibly around November 3rd and 5th. Now this seems to be when the enemy is expecting they will finally be able to take Alice down the rabbit hole with CERN and all that. One thing that has been pointed out though is that these numbers are more than just references to the Gregorian calendar dates of November 3rd and 5th. When we look at the overall significant theming of the cover, we find a distinct Eastern and Asian reference. This is a clue. The globe up in the corner is not a planetary globe. It is the moon, with its many faces, and it is pointing to the Chinese lunar calendar. This symbolism is telling you what the dates are referenced with. So do you remember what 2015 is on the Chinese calendar? The year of the goat. This year we've also saw other numerous references to Pan and Cernunnos, the horned god of the underworld, prominently illuminated and projected on significant landmarks. He's signaling his disciples that something is about to happen. Satan doesn't know the day or the hour, but apparently he does know the time frame of when he will finally be unrestrained. See our video, The Hoover Dam Signal, for much more on this particular theme that has been pushed this year. If we take the middle date that would be between these two arrows, 11-4, and we find the equivalent on the Chinese calendar, we find that the equivalent would be 9/23. We had noticed in previous months in our Situation Room that the media had made numerous references and signals pointing toward the number combination 9/23. Many suppose that this was a reference to September 23rd and that there was a lot of hype about it. I only mentioned that the media was pointing toward it and nothing else. Again, it goes back to it really wasn't a true weighty evidence that could have been considered legit by a Christian looking for biblical answers. Yes, we keep our eyes on what the enemy is doing, but we cannot derive truth from what they are doing. The evidence for what we do and where we hang our hopes should be with the signs that Scripture tells us to take comfort in and to use as signs of His revealing. Always make that distinction so you don't get caught up with false hopes, distractions, diversions, and enemy propaganda. We should consider that the 9/23 reference was enemy action pointing their disciples on a Chinese lunar calendar to a time period that they should expect to take shelter and that major events, namely war, is about to kick off. That's all we can derive from that. We also find ourselves on the threshold of Armistice Day, the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month, the day right after the days of Noah comes to a close, the day right after two signals and reminders of judgment, Noah's Ark and the rainbow. Now, I do not know what is coming or what will happen. I'm just a watchman telling you that you need to pay serious attention and not be caught blind like the Laodiceans and the hypocrites. On our website, in our Situation Room, we have an updated printout with this information that you can use and study, reference, and for others. We are at the 11th hour. Are you considering what ministry opportunities you can have for those who will be left behind, both Christians and unbelievers? Luke 12:46. The Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looketh not for him, because he's blind, and at an hour when he is not aware, because he's not paying attention, and will cut him asunder, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. His reservation was changed and canceled. Matthew 25:6-7. And at midnight, 12, there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. Have you heard the watchman calling to get ready? Is your lamp trimmed from what is keeping you from shining bright? Are you shining at all? Or are you like the foolish virgins and Laodiceans who didn't care? Be sober, be vigilant, be ready, overcome. Maranatha.